My name's Eamon Hearns. My film is Chimera, and I'm from Ireland. Yeah, I mean, it kind of iterated out of a few things. I mean, the very first thing it came from was a writing exercise I did. I was reading a load of Ray Bradbury short stories at the time, and I would read one and then I'd write a response. Like I just give myself 10 minutes. It didn't have to be necessarily associated with it, and just some ideas that came out of that, like the thing with the eyelash kind of came out of it, and the person who was into books came out of it. And initially, it was pretty uh, bland. It was the gender roles weren't switched. So I kind of wrote this story, and I was like, no, well, that's I'm not. And when I came back to it later, I was like, oh well, maybe if I do this, it'd be more interesting. And then over time, I was just like, tweaking things back and forth. And I mean, much as I'm a big fan of horror films, I'm also a big fan of rom-coms when they're done well. One of my favorite films is Annie Hall, and I love When Harry Met Sally, all that kind of thing. And so I wanted to do something with that genre, like using the way we've been trained from watching so many of these films, that things happen in these films that are sometimes a bit creepy, but they're kind of the way that they're positioned is made to seem romantic. So what I want in Chimera, what I wanted was to kind of have this kind of traditional rom-com setup, but then, when there's a twist at the end, to recognize that actually the red flags were there the whole time. Yeah, I met Iola years ago. Iola Smart is the lead. She's amazing, and Zachary Hart is the male love interest. I met her years ago when I studied acting back at East 15 Acting School in London, and she was like years below me, and she is significantly younger than me, like about 10 years. But I always kind of remembered her. We stayed in touch on Instagram, occasionally liking each other's things. And when I was just thinking about casting it, I was kind of just going through my phone and just kind of thinking, and she popped into my head, and I got in touch with but I looked her up to get in touch with her, and I didn't realize that she actually had become really successful. I was just going to message her because I knew she was an actor and I thought she'd be right for the part. And so then when I sent it to her, she was up for it. I think she wanted to kind of start taking matters into her own hands and roles that she was getting and that kind of thing. She's in Wheel of Time, which is just finished, and had done Killing Eve and all that kind of thing. But I think she's interested now in kind of exploring stories that she's interested in, instead of just having to go for stories that are sent her way. So yeah, she was interested, jumped on board. So I mean, the first person that I had on board to do it, I mean, I have a friend called Dan Martin, who's a special effects artist who does lots of really big stuff. And so he kind of consulted with me, and I spoke to him about how it is done. But he's really busy, and I could never afford him, in order to take up his time that he would be spent working otherwise. And so I had to find people who were interested in doing it. So I found these up and coming students who were looking for a project to do, and they jumped on board. And they were absolutely incredible. And it was again a learning process. But then the things that I asked them to do, I was just the delivery of the prosthetics and the special effects and all of that was just above and beyond what I expected it could ever be. And the film just could not have existed without that team. And for that bit that we're not going to talk about, I wanted to do it all practically, because there's a difference. I mean, I'm not against VFX. I mean, VFX are very important, but there are certain things that practical effects are better for, and certain things that VFX are better for, and I wanted to stick with that, so it felt real and felt visceral when these things were happening. That initial kind of response thing that I wrote to Ray Bradbury, I wrote it in 10 minutes, I put it in a drawer, I forgot about it, and it was only when the BFI, the British Film Institute, every year they run, you can apply for short film funding, and it's incredibly competitive, and I've never gotten funding, but I've applied a few times, and you put in a lot of work for it. And one year I was just looking for an idea to submit, and I didn't know what to do, so I was just going back through old notebooks. I just came across this idea, and it was very, very far away from what the finished script was, but I was like, oh, maybe there's something in this. But again, it was the lead was a white guy, and I was like, okay, that's not very interesting. And then from there I iterated. But once I had written the script, it was the white guy, and I changed the genders, and I was like, okay, that's more interesting because it's actually looking at, again, gender roles and dating and all that kind of stuff. And then the ending bit, it wasn't like that. And then just one day, it just dropped into my head, and as soon as I realized that that was the ending, it just made the whole thing just made so much sense to me. Yeah, I'm a big Lovecraft fan, so I think I was reading a lot of Lovecraft at the time, and so that whole element being brought in, it really, yeah, it just made everything else make sense to it. And so then I applied for that funding, and I didn't get the money, but I got shortlisted. I was told I was shortlisted, and it was just that bit of encouragement that I was like, oh, okay. So it was down to, because they get a lot of applications, and it was down to a certain number. Probably a lot. I mean, don't think I'm a genius or anything, but it was just that if I hadn't have received that, it would have just gone in a drawer. I would have forgotten about it. And I mean, I didn't do anything with it for a year or two, but then one day I was like, okay, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to push forward and try to make this. I mean, it was such a long process. I learned so much of the pre-production, and so much about making the film is about pre-production, having those discussions, because even when you are having doing that prep, you start, because every day you're preparing the script and you are constantly just digging the script. It's not changing, but you're realizing yourself, you're realizing the things that have dropped in from your unconscious, and you're like, oh, I didn't even realize that was in there. And then you start churning that. And so then that enters into the production design. It enters into what type of, what lenses you use, or what camera movements you use, the way you design things. And so when you're constantly thinking about it, so the pre-production process for me, this is the longest I've ever spent on pre-production, because it was, there were a lot of moving parts in this, lots of locations, the practical effects, all that kind of thing. And so by just churning it over, it became more and more dense and packed in. So that was definitely a thing I would have. And then the other thing was just working. I mean, I had done a little bit of VFX before, but there's some VFX in this film, but the practical effects, I mean, I learned so much from that. And again, that goes down to pre-production, because you can't just show up on the day and be like, okay, we're going to do the practical effects now. It all has to be done in advance and planned, and you have to think through how you're going to do this to make it look realistic, and so that the illusion is sold. These kind of things happen all the time. It's just that we've used images to discuss it in a different way, so that we, the audience comes in and they watch a narrative structured piece, and it becomes something, and there's a climax, and we enjoy it for what it is. But if you actually think about it and deconstruct it, that happens every night of the week, all around the world. And so that is a thing that's up for discussion. I just want them to really enjoy it. I mean, much as I say that, and it's kind of heavy in thinking, but it's not. There are other things to do with the film, and even when the music that we use on the film, I can think also, it's kind of opens up with this kind of disco track, and that's the kind of the vibe I want it to be, because it is a kind of a fun film. I want people to enjoy the rom-comness of it, and to just follow that path, because Iola Smart and Zachary Hart as actors, they are incredible, and I love the chemistry that they had on things. So just go on the journey, enjoy it, because there are some jokes in there that are kind of funny as well, I think. And when it comes to the conclusion of the film, and when you walk away, if you want to think about it afterwards on a deeper level, great. If you don't, just enjoy it for the ride that it is.